I don't know how long you want me to keep playing. There, I turned it off. Should I keep going?
That was perfect. That was perfect. We're good. All right, let's make sure everybody can see and hear us. Hey, can you hear us? Oh. I think we're probably good, but yeah, that's the way to do it. Oh, we're good. We got all sorts of good stuff. All right, so we've got audio, we've got video, we've got what the heck. All right, where's my thingy? Where'd I put the list? There it is. Okay. So this is what the heck. We have Alex Barnett and CK Sample. I don't know how to say it. Is it Seek? Is it a clever thing that I'm not?
That's right, CK.
Like,
although in high school, Seek was a nickname, but
okay, we'll stick with CK because it's cool and there's a whole bunch of clothing with your initials on it.
Yeah, that jerk.
Yeah. All right. So. I think it's cool to do a little intro every time. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
I thought I'd put on my mantle.
Yeah. I was doing that earlier. I completely repatched today, so I look like
I've got the
I
biggest
went upstairs
mess on
and
my
didn't
floor.
realize it. Yeah. It's great. I mean, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to unhook things. You just got like it all right there, ready to go.
It's literally my chair was rolling over wires, and I was like, crap, I gotta pick them up.
The tip, yeah.
The worst is when you drop an SD card that has samples on it.
No.
That happened to me once. Oh,
And they're just getting small, like the SD, they're always micro SD cards, right? And the Rample has like, I don't know, 600 samples plus or something on there. And I took it upstairs, put a few samples on it, and then misplaced it. And it was gone for like 6 days.
Yeah,
what do you do?
I got the sample drum.
Kicking it off good today. Yeah. Hold on. I don't know if they can hear you, Alex. I'm seeing a comment in the chat.
Weird. They can't hear Alex, but they hear us. That's bizarre.
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, we can hear you on Zoom, but not on the show.
Well, welcome to What the Heck. It wouldn't be What the Heck without at least the first 5 minutes being some audio issue on one of us. Yeah. And yeah, I wanted to kick it off just by a quick question. Like, what we talk modular, and we're going to dive right into modular pretty quickly, I think. But what's your favorite non-modular piece of music hardware that you use? Like something that's not like a usual Euro rack module or something.
For me, it's either my guitars, because I've been playing guitar since I was like 11 years old.
Yeah.
So I have a 1978 or 77, I can't remember which year, the Paul, which is the all walnut.
All
Paul
walnut.
with an ebony board. It's lovely. I'll show you it in a second as soon as I can get up and grab it.
Great.
And then besides that, I have a Mofo Dave Smith Instruments keyboard, which
Right.
it has a preset on it that's called the Tom Sawyer preset. And it sounds just like Rush, like Tom Sawyer. It's amazing. You just like to hit that one note. And it's really good.
Quick
I've
sound
been
test.
looking at the Mofo. I think
Quick
now's
sound
a good
test.
time to get to it. Oh,
Quick
yeah.
sound test. Can you hear
You'll
me
hear
say
Alex.
walnut?
Yes, walnut. Hold on.
Well, we
Cool.
can hear you.
Doing a test on YouTube while I do that.
This is
We're good. We're good.
the baby.
Yo.
Now, I modded it and added this Bixby because I'm crazy. But it's not really in tune right now. And you can't hear it because it's not plugged in. But this thing has a really good tone because it's all solid walnut with an ebony board. And I remember when I had to get it tuned up at one point. I took it to like a Guitar Center or something and they were fixing it. And I came to pick it up and I heard it playing over an amp. And I was like, that's my guitar. I knew he was messing with my guitar because it has a very distinct tone. So I love this guitar.
That's rad. Yeah, the Bigsby sold me on my last guitar. I swapped it, whatever I had out for a Gretsch with a Bigsby on it. It's not as nice as your guitar for sure, but I love dive bombing and the vibrato you get.
You
from that
can
thing.
have things that are as nice as mine.
Yeah, I guess my favorite thing right now is actually not my guitar, though I have been playing it recently and building up my calluses again because I haven't touched it in enough time where my fingers are weak, useless for guitar. But they're great on the ukulele, so I've been playing that a bunch. That's been my go-to lately, including some blues licks.
Okay. So I just want to go back to SD cards temporarily. Just for
Okay,
those
yeah,
who
do
aren't
your story
listening
now
to
that they can hear
It's
it.
very quick, very quick. I randomly found an SD card after I was trying to like clear my desk, and I don't know if it's a Trojan SD card. It could be like placed surreptitiously by somebody going like, "Hey, just shove it in your Mac, shove it in your machine. Who knows what it is? Could be good, could be not fantastic." So I have a random SD card that I don't know what that is.
Just wipe it. What's the worst that could happen? I have a bunch of those because I made a bunch of Raspberry Pi things. Anyway, I don't want to get too far into the SD card weeds that I could
Alex
talk
just
about.
went mute again. He was talking to us and we couldn't hear him.
What? Oh, I think he might have muted
They
himself.
couldn't hear me. Oh my god.
Oh,
Okay,
I
don't
think-
worry about me. I'm going to
Oh,
make
no.
sure everybody can hear what you're saying.
Sorry, I
I
didn't mean
think
to
I
interrupt.
have some weird audio issues that snuck in a week ago and I can't figure it out. So I'm not going to get in the way. You carry on. Hex 7. What do we want to talk about?
Yeah, let's talk about. I think since we have CK, we could do a little bit of an AMA. I know I'm curious, CK, like how is sequencing going? Like I know you updated the Erica Black sequencer, and you were looking at sequencing it through the Akai Force, right? Like using
Yeah.
the Akai Force as the primary. How's that going?
Good. I mean, it works. Like I figured out how to set it up in pass-through mode so that I could like use the Kai Force to trigger all the stuff. And the Kai Force is very similar to Ableton in that you can set up different loops and have them like trigger them whenever you want. So it's interesting to quickly set up like an infinite number of small sequences and trigger between them whenever you want. So that's the depth at which I've done it. I haven't figured out actually, because I haven't bothered to read the manual yet because I just geeked out about that. But I haven't figured out how to actually record the CV, even though I know it's possible now with that setup. But record the CV from the Akai Force, because the Akai Force, for those of you that don't know about it, and it's relatively new, I guess it's kind of edging out the mofo in terms of things that I'm actually using that are not modular, but it does have CV outputs, so I kind of think of it as modular, but it has 4 CV outputs and MIDI out, and with the MIDI out into the black sequencer, I could have an infinite number of MIDI tracks that I switch between. So I could really build a huge palette on the Akai Force of sequences to trigger between, if I wanted to go insane with it.
Very like the Ableton clips and stuff like that.
Yeah. But there's only 4 tracks. Well, someone else pointed this out on one of the other forums that I'm on. It's got 4 tracks out, but each of the 4 tracks has a CV out, like pitch CV, then it has a gate out, and then it also has another modulation CV, which you can
like a mod
as,
one.
Yeah, that
so like the Beat Step Pro.
Hmm?
Kind of like the Beat Step Pro's tracks.
Kinda, yeah, but you can set like an ADSR envelope per step, which has been the most amazing thing. It's kind of making me rethink my entire rack and think, do I get rid of all my envelopes? No, that's crazy, isn't it? Because like any ADSR envelopes except for the ones that are here, really, that are in it now. But so technically, it's 12 tracks that you could control separately depending on how you patch it in your system. So that's kind of fun to think about. But I haven't dug into it that deep yet. Mostly just been doing the streams you guys see where I do it and play around, and I'm like, wow, this sounds good, cool.
That's pretty rad. I had a similar sort of epiphany when I got this like Squirt Pyramid. I like redid everything. It doesn't actually have that much CV. It has a single. You can have CV, a gate, an envelope, and then there's like a foot pedal input that you can use for CV input to it. But I don't use that for anything other than I think I send a gate out to my compressor every once in a while for like the heavy hitting drum stuff. But it's got a absolute boatload of MIDI out, and I've got a MIDI module that I built that I think is very similar to almost all of the other ones. It's got four channels. I can chain it with another one, which is an interesting thing I might try at some point, to have up to 8. Plus there's a bunch of other outputs, like there's some CC outputs and things, and it made it really easy to do quick things, like you said, like almost like very quickly pick a completely different sequence that in this case affects my drums and the modular and the other synthesizers.
Well, the black sequencer is really cool for that on its own too. Like the streams that I posted last night and the night before, both of them were me taking a really long sequence that I created before on it and just moving around like 3 or 4 notes at a time around that sequence, like shifting around it quickly and playing with ADSR, and so that was kind of fun.
That's cool.
I have one quick question for you. Well, it's actually a suggestion. I know that you're not a manual reader. You just said that with Black Sequencer. But the thing that I did watch was Molten. Do you know Molten Music?
Yes.
So he did a review about a week ago, and he walks through probably about 5 to 7 minutes of a 50-minute video, walking through how he records CV and MIDI in.
With the black sequencer?
Yeah. So he got it going after the update, and he demos it on a video, and just like you're like me. I don't like reading manuals. I would like watching it. Well, I don't know if you like watching videos even, but that's how I like it.
Yeah,
so it's worth checking out.
Manuals too. I just haven't dug in. I got too geeked out about just being able to do any CV, like any into it at all, and so I never got to the point of figuring out, oh, this is the part to record it, because I was just playing it.
We keep talking about manuals a lot, but I just wanted to throw like I feel like it's just like like for me it's a single interest thing. So I want to do X, so I read enough of the manual to do X, and then I play with that thing a shit ton, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this other thing, and I come back 2 weeks later and learn that. Yeah, like that kind of a cycle to try things. Like Morphogene is a great example of that for me, and something that's super
Well, the idea about
confusing and deep, but
being able to
has,
record or slash sample CV,
yeah.
it's something I want to try and do more. I've got equipment that can do that. So I know the Black Sequencer can do that today. I've got the Rosum sampler, a similar 8 or whatever.
How
It
is
can
that?
do that. And I do, like in my head, it's like, man, I need to do more of that. Because like there are CV patterns and CV sequences that you can apply and throw around once you've captured it in a way that you can just throw it away, but like apply it in different places. I want to play with that.
Yeah, I thought I would really like the Squid sampler uh, for that feature specifically, and I never ended up using it. And then I
Oh, it's
kind
called
of hated using
CV
it.
sampling, huh? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it does CV sampling too, and I just never ended up using it, and didn't really gel with it as a module either. Feels
That
and
never occurred to me to try that. That's hmm. All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fun game. CV sampling. Think about
I
what
mean,
you
I
can
was already
do.
thinking of like what's kind of fun on like the Pocket Operators or Ableton or something is like while a track is playing, twisting the CV or like twisting the filter knob and recording that input or whatever the thing is. And that's something I haven't done a bunch of. Like I could take the CV out of this and do something like that, and there's even a couple out of this that could do it. But I don't know, it just never occurred to me. Try that soon. Pitch bend stuff too.
still have more wires on my floor than I'm rolling over.
I knew I did good today. I have this new standing mat thing because standing on cement for a long time sucks. But like I moved after playing some music earlier, and I looked down and there was like a perfect spaghetti imprint of where my feet were with wires underneath of it.
So, look,
That stuff.
I'm gonna. There's a few folks. There's Robbie, live Cauldron of Bats, and the rest of it. There's a bit of an AMA question I have for CK Sample because CK, I love you. I love how you jam. Right, you just like get on and you crank, and I love it. It's very awesome. So, straightforward question: when did you get into modular? How did that happen?
Let's see. Probably about 4 years ago. I was actually like, so I got back into guitar, like, so I used to be in hair bands in the late '90s and, uh, well, actually early '90s, late '80s. When I was in high school, I'm dating myself. Like high school and college, like played in a couple of bands. I was in about 3 different groups, and I played a lot and loved music and played all the time. And as you get older and you start doing tons of things, like, and start, oh, I gotta be professional. I gotta do my work. Like I got really into that and didn't play as much as I did in my youth. And then probably about 6, 7 years ago when I was in Austin, because Austin's got a great music culture, I started playing guitar again and started hanging out with some friends at work. And actually, a friend of mine from work, he actually worked at this former company. Now he works at my new company, Steve Fish, who's our HR guy. He's probably the best drummer I've ever played with in my life. He used to be with, he actually used to play bass for a ska band called the Fabulous Bowler Boys or something. They actually had a record though back in the '80s, like, and so, but we had like a little jam band that I was the lead guitarist and scream singer for, and he played drums, and so that's when I got really back into playing music regularly, and we did that for about, I don't know, a year and a half. Even after I moved up to Dallas, where I am now, I used to go back and visit, and we would play together, and we rented out like some studio space, and we just never performed anywhere publicly, just played stuff and wrote songs and just had fun, and they were all like, all the lyrics were horribly, horribly written things by me that were like reflections of my youth. They're just horrible hairband stuff. Like we had a song called "Compliant Vagiant" that I wrote. Anyway, but I digress. But so like just that was fun, and then I started getting into synthesizers. I think I got the I'd never done synths before, and I got the Korg, the first Korg mini log that came out, the silver one, you know, and everything, and I really loved playing around with it. And then I you know, started hanging out in a music store, you know how it is, like a local one, and like traded some old gear for some new gear, got the kids some like small guitars for them and stuff, and was just kind of doing that whole thing and playing with it. And sometime around that time when I was checking out new synths, like, you know, full synths, someone in one of the stores said something to me like, hey, have you ever checked out Eurorack? I was like, no, I'm never going to do that. It's way too expensive. It's crazy. I'm not getting into that at all. No chance or whatever. And then I just started thinking about it. And so I checked it out. I looked at it some, and I dove in crazy deep really quickly and got, I think the first thing I got was Pam's and a Braids, which wasn't that crazy. But then I special ordered, because I was watching a lot of what Colin Benders does, and I saw all of his modules, and I was like, those look like different than all the other modules I see, because they were like old school, really expensive ones. And I sent off to Japan and ordered an ER301 sound computer, because it's basically like a whole virtual digital Eurorack interface inside of a module. And that was really, that's where I started. You know, I started figuring out how to build patches in the ER301, and now I know I don't play it that much, but that's what started me, was figuring out all the mechanics of this in that extremely expensive early investment I did in modular. Oh, and the whole reason, I forgot this, the whole reason I really started thinking about maybe I should get into modular is I was enough into synths where I got the output desk from, the platform desk from Output, and it has 9U of space in there, and I was like, I could stick some
like rack space,
huh?
Open rack space.
Yeah, it has open rack space, like 3U, 3U, 3U across it, and I thought I could mod this and add some happy nerding, you know, ears in there and rack up some stuff. And so that's how I got started initially, and then I built my own case and played with it for a while, and then it evolved over time. And so I've basically been through a 4-year journey of building up and then stopping myself from getting bigger. So even though I kind of cheated on the stopping myself, I said I was going to stop when I got the EP360, but then I built this little rig.
Fucking dude, I'm gonna stop when. Boy, you know,
well, now I'm actually doing it, even though I have EP360, EP208, EP96 over here, and a Pod 48, plus my three Moogs here.
But I'm just saying, famous last words. I'll stop when.
This is my
okay. By the
as
way,
far as I'm concerned.
I've just literally got a Zoom warning. Running out of time. This meeting will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade now to remove the 40-minute time limit.
We'll just spin it up real quick when it ends, and OBS can display a blank screen or something.
So, but I'm actually trying to stick to that now. So I'm trying to stick to the idea of this 208 portable case, this 360 portable case are that's like, I have some spillover that I play with and have fun with, but this is if I ever go on the road, I'm going to carry these two cases someplace on the same keyboard stand that I have it sitting in my studio with, and plug it in and play it, you know.
And just quickly, what's the mixing situation in that scenario when you're on the road?
So right now all my mixing is on board through the Hex Mix and the Hexpander. And then I have the two main outs from that are going into my studio mixer back here, which is how I stream everything, but those same 2 outs can go into whatever gear I have at whatever place I go to play with. That's my thought. And I also have like individual line outs that are also going into my studio mixer for each of the tracks so that I can record all the stems if I want to, but I'm usually too lazy and don't bother.
Very cool. There's some chat questions I'm going to back up to real quick. Let's see here. Cauldron of Bats is asking, how do you all prefer to keep your sequencers in sync? And I can answer that super quickly, so I'll go first. One, I mostly just use the squirt pyramid at this point, so it usually stays in sync. Sometimes there's funny stuff, so what I'll do if things aren't quite in sync is I'll actually hit the play button while it's playing, which sort of resets all the playheads, like if I have sequences that are different length. But I also use that same technique like if I'm using any of the other hardware sequencers, like if you let it go long enough where it sounds like it's on purpose, and then when you get to a good point, you reset the playhead on all of them at the same time if you can do that. But usually I'm using MIDI to keep things in sync, or in some cases the click track.
Okay, I'll go briefly. I use Metron as my master clock. I distribute that through a couple of mechanisms. One is the 4-quad clock distributor. You plug in to the top and you've got divisions of or multiplications of 3 below that. And then I use a mult, like I just slap it in and I just distribute that depending on my use case. And then something that I have been learning more as I play around with the overall system is to think of clocks as more malleable than just a division of the tempo. In other words, so for example, Metropolis, at first when I was playing around with this, my head was like, oh, you got to master tempo. You throw out a division or multiplication of or exactly the same into Metropolis, and that's the way it goes. I realized like clock in is just a trigger. And so Metropolis is just thinking about it is like, when I hear something, I'll go. And then when I really decoupled the master tempo away from that and then threw in another pulse from some other thing that could be directly or very loosely related to the master tempo, that changes the game a little bit. So that's the general idea for me, and I'm just beginning that latter side of the journey. I'm doing that.
Yeah, and I just choose one module in my setup, and it's not always the same one, to be the master clock. And usually I have a clock out from that. So right now in this patch I have the Erica synths and I have a bunch of mult cables, and so it's sending clock out into the dot, which is also replicating via these cables to my 2 steppies, and then it's also got another cable that's going over here to Magneto and to my Lifeforms micro sequence. But sometimes I'll use the Maestro as my master clock and start it from there and loop it around and everything. And at a certain point, the multing that way breaks and it doesn't work anymore. But I tend to use the steppies because I have 2 steppies that act as my, for the scenario you're describing, Alex, like where you want a different set of notes, a different, you want a 16th note versus a 4th note versus whatever, a 32nd note. Like I try to set my master clock at the fastest tempo I'm planning on going on, and then I may create triggers out from one of the sequences of the steppy to clock something else at a lower note set. That's generally what I do, and I've started doing that with dot too. I just got the dot though, so I'm getting used to it.
The one?
The dot.
Yeah, the dot. The what's it called? It's the DNI Pro Dot. It's a 3-channel Euclidean sequencer that's pretty cool.
I don't know it.
Never heard of it.
Say it again.
The Dot, D-O-T, from DNI Pro.
Oh,
I'll type it in the chat.
Okay, I'm googling that shit right now because I haven't even heard of that.
While you're searching that up, like this just reminded me one of the things that I've seen that's I think is really cool. I don't have any sequencers that play nicely with this, but you can if you've got a sequencer like the Baby 8-step, or not Baby 8, there's like an 8-step sequencer you can DIY that basically takes a trigger input that puts it a step forward each trigger. So it's not a standard clock necessarily. It's taking it as a trigger. So you can set up like a sequence on your BeatStep Pro or whatever that's an irregular clock, or very quickly change the clock speed, which will rapidly change the way it plays that sequence and the overall feel of it. So you can make it very very dynamic changes based on the actual sequence you've programmed into the beat step as triggers, that kind of thing.
Oh, I'll check that out. That is very cool. Back to the questions, Hex7. There was another couple of questions here.
Yeah, and the next one was question for CK. Eurorack drum. It's from Robbie. Eurorack drums. How do you do this? Sounds, sequencing, variety, etc. How do you do this?
So the majority of what I do now is Queen of Pentacles, because I got that drum module, and that has become my drum module for all drum modules. And then it has a bunch of onboard effects. It has a bunch of adjustable things. It has a master filter that goes from high pass to low pass that I use dramatically, I think, in a lot of my sets. And then
Is that one analog drums or are they DSPs? Like I can't even remember.
It's
like
the first three. The first three triggers on it are analog, modeled off of the 909.
Okay.
And then the next set are a bunch of samples that play very quickly.
Perfect.
So it's and there I haven't bothered with the sample functions in terms of loading my own samples or anything. I just use the factory ones and play through them at this point. And it's pretty badass. Like I really wanted the Black Noir back when that came out, because drums are something that I think should be simple in Eurorack, and they're often very difficult.
They're like the most cables, because it's like a whole set of cables per voice usually. Like if I'm not wrong about this.
And the Black Noir was great, except for no matter where I put it in my rack, I got a bunch of noise and I just couldn't stand it. So I got rid of it, and I was so happy when the Queen of Pentacles came out, because it's amazing. It's better than the Black Noir. It has no noise issues, except for when you have noisy synthesizers. I mean, noisy processing settings.
Okay.
So it's my main drum voice. I also use Bacillus Ateritas alter at times. I'll often accentuate the kick with another kick noise, and sometimes that's one of my oscillators going through per call, or it's an actual dedicated drum module like the BIA. I actually have a Unicorn Boom on order. They came out with new black panel ones, so there's one of those in my future, and I don't know if I'm going to love it and keep it in the rack because it's 22 HP of space that'll kick something out, or if it'll go to the side, but we'll see. And then sequencing drums, now it's the dot and the two steppies. Basically, they are creating different rhythms that I have a lot of control over, just quickly pushing the buttons and changing things up on steppy.
Are you using any sort of like probability sort of effects on the drums or anything like that to sort of change up the sequence, or some way to randomize the, or add variety to the sequence?
Before you answer that, CK, quick warning. I'm getting the last flash zoom from Zoom to tell me that everything's dead, and it's allowing me to, so it's just me, right? You still there? No, you guys are gone. We're back on.
We're back. I think all the audio and stuff should still just work. So let us know if we're wrong about that.
X7,
You
I
hear
can
me?
hear you. CK, I can hear you. And if confirmation by anybody on YouTube, they can hear all three of us, then we just carry on.
Quick. I think next time that happens, I'll just spin up a Zoom real quick while you handle OBS, and then send the invites out so we could just.
Okay. I think we're good though. We can just carry
Yeah,
on.
we're good. It's fine.
So the question was, what was the question?
Well, so we were in drums, sequencing
Drums.
drums. We were
Oh, variety. He's asking about variety.
variety.
Oh, variety. So, I mean, I'll pass some LFOs to cause some changes in terms of the filter patterns and the hits on things, and sometimes I'll add another set of triggers. Like I'll mix through a mult line like other triggers, but most of it, honestly, like I really hands-on play a lot of this stuff. Like, you know, like I'm quickly twiddling things and changing.
Yeah.
Like on the dot now, I'm quickly changing the knob to change the Euclidean patterns it has on the fly. On the steppies, I'll often just sit there and plug in new notes real quick just because I've been doing it a while, and I'm trying to get better and better at that because that's one of the reasons I keep my rig so small. I'm not into this West Coast thing where I set this all up and it's automated and I never touch it. It's boring, so to me anyway. So like I try to be very like hands-on, turning knobs, pulling cables, patching new cables in, pushing a bunch of buttons. Like that's what makes me have fun doing it. So
That's rad. Yeah, I'm also very intentional. Like I don't use probability a lot, and like I think the only things I want to use probability on are like closed hats or something like that. That's very minimal. It's not worth it.
yeah, agreed.
um, yeah, Tito's. All right. Any other questions that you have, Alex, or anything like that? Otherwise, we can move on.
I've got lots of questions, but let's move on.
All right. The next question is also very similar to what I just asked, but it's in the same neighborhood. Like I'm just wondering, like, what do you do to keep it fresh? Like avoid the blank page sort of syndrome, or avoid worrying about sounding the same as the last song and that kind of stuff. And I'm not like no judgment if you want to sound the same. Like I know I just like start playing with a new oscillator in a different way I haven't tried before and start from there, things like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I worry about that much, or if I just play stuff and then I go like, because I often think about that. I think, why does everybody even enjoy watching me? Because I feel like I do the same things all the time and I sound very similar all the like. I think I have a sound, but then I'll like go back and listen to my old stuff or things that I've streamed, and I'm like, oh, there's actually quite a bit of variety here, and I don't realize it, you know, because sometimes I'm doing the same techniques but with different oscillators or different chain of things, and so it always ends up being somewhat unique, and that's enough for me. And if people don't like distortion, they can listen to somebody else.
That's right. Hell yeah. Yeah, I don't worry about it too much. It's something that I saw a lot of people like struggling with. Like I took that Andrew Huang class last month on production, and like a lot of people were struggling with sort of that theme of like, how do I do something new or different? And like that doesn't even occur to me most of the time. And yeah, every once in a while I'll play a riff and I'm like, this is great. And then I'll be like, I'm pretty sure this is the same riff I played 2 weeks ago, but whatever, it sounds different.
I think part of it for me has been just over the past year with the pandemic and getting braver, I guess, about my modular, because the modular, like I said, I've been doing it for 4 years. I only started streaming to YouTube and streaming to Earth Modular Society like recently, like this year. That was something that happened this year, and I think actually doing that activity is what first off leveled up my game quite a bit, just in terms of the practice of just doing it, you know. And it got me out of my head in terms of, I was kind of in the space where I don't know if this is good enough to record, and should I record this, and oh wait, I'm trying to like create the perfect sequence, and no, it's not quite good enough yet. And there's something like um, that I think I unlocked for myself when I just went, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna like plug in and stream live. So I have to do something, you know. That's been part of the agreement is I have to stream live, and it was even before Benjamin invited me to Earth Modular Society. I started streaming live myself, and it was just and nobody was watching me. Really, like every once in a while, one person would show up or something, and they'd be like, "Hey, pretty cool, man," and that was it. And but just the fact that I was doing it, if I knew at least YouTube's eyes were on it, at least the video was recording me and it was being recorded, and it forced me to do something and to have fun with it and not put all that pressure that you can tend to put on yourself as an artist. And I think it really unlocked for me that, you know what, I'm a performance artist. I'm a let's have fun. Let's not compose a big waltz or something crazy and get to it in our head. Let's try to drop a beat and make something grungy and get people's heads bobbing and go, you know. And that's where I kind of got away and just broke free from that worry about repeating stuff too, because I think that's part of that creative cycle where you're still doubting whether you're good enough, and it doesn't really matter. Like if you're having fun and you're good to a certain extent, who cares? It doesn't have to be perfect is my point. Just like have fun with it, grow, learn, you'll get better. It's natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And Robbie just asked basically this question you answered is, how does streaming on EMS affect you? And like, yeah, I mean, Alex and I talked about this, I think a couple weeks ago. Very similar stories. Like I don't think I hadn't streamed at least until EMS. And I was like, oh, this is cool. At the time, it was pretty new and small, like cool little group of people who know what they're talking about. I know very little other than the stuff that I built. Like literally, I knew nothing about Eurorec, other than the things that I built, which pseudo Eurorec. But like turning on the stream button, like you said, was like life changing for music. Because before I'd be like frustrated that I wasn't like recording enough or doing enough things, and this way, like I don't even care. I hit stream it. I'll hit record on the mixer now, just in case. But like, I don't worry about creating necessarily like a radio edit 3-minute long song. I don't care about that. I'm having fun with the performance. If I mess up, oh well. Like somebody chuckles, or more likely somebody is like, "Hey, you should try this thing," which is I think really empowering, like freeing, like I don't know. It takes very little to get me to want to stream these days. Like if I get like a 16 note riff going, I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Like go live. Like, so
I have no idea what I'm going to do beyond these 8 notes that I just popped in, but let's go.
Like, let's figure it out. And like, you can tell when I'm on those days, it's like, oh, I'll just throw some arps in there and some drums and we got a song. Let's go party.
That's every one of my days. But yeah, like that. Yeah. I'd say that for me, EMS, like at first I was just like literally like at first I was like, well, I was already streaming on my own to nobody, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll stream here to nobody, you know. That was my initial attitude, but it has been a very positive experience with the whole community and everybody kind of, and the days that we've done stream trains and stuff, it's been really fun. And then but then I actually got the chance to perform at the New York Modular Society, and all of a sudden I was stressed about that because it was my first scheduled performance.
Yeah,
even though
but it's a different experience.
Yeah, and I got really in my head about it, and did the thing that is unnatural for me in terms of tried to build a really structured patch days ahead of time. And I ended up mostly ripping it all out and repatching the same day as the show beforehand, and it turned out good, like that show. But I was probably the most nervous I've been in months, like for anything.
I mean, I know what you're saying. I just went through that like last weekend with the Magpie Fest. Like that was my first like non-EMS, more than two people are going to watch this stream. And
Yeah.
I also got super in my head. It's why I disappeared for like 2 weeks from streaming on EMS, because I was trying to compose a structured thing, which I did. And I don't know if I would do that again. That was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun, but
Yeah. Well, the second time I did it, even though I had to do, because it was one of the patchable performers things, so you actually had to have, I had to have formants in my patch. So I had to figure out.
Was that part of the rule, CK?
Yeah, it was part
yeah,
of the rule.
that,
Okay.
yeah.
I had to figure out what the heck a formant was. And then
Wow,
I knew it, but I was
wow.
like, how should I patch this in this good? And so I got that part done, and the rest of it I just kind of winged. Like it was much more natural, and I was much less nervous, and I had a much better time the second time I did it.
That's cool.
And then after that, we had a stream train. I feel like it was on New Year's or right around New Year's that we actually did a stream train. And I remember I did my stuff, and then Data performed what I just performed, did visualization over it right afterwards. And the weird experience of Dissonant and Travarsi showing up and watching that replay while I was watching it happen live blew my mind. I was like, as far as EMS stuff, I was
Dude,
just
that's
like,
Let's
awesome.
talk about Data
they're
for a
digging my
second.
stuff, and this looks awesome, and I'm digging my stuff, and this.
How
That's
cool is
exactly
that?
right. I don't understand how he does it, but when he comes around like 5 minutes or after you're done with the set and starts this video DJing thing, you're like when the first time he did that to me, I was like sitting on the floor in front of the washing machine, like in awe, like,
Yeah.
oh, this actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
What is
Yeah, that's
everybody
awesome.
talking about real genius for it? Do I sound like God when I talk in the mic? Is that what it is?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's various different gods. Which one have you got in mind when you say that?
Well, the one from Real Genius. You know?
Oh, well, yes, then.
Interesting.
Or no, it was the other kid that was doing the God voice.
Never mind. I'll save my joke for a different day.
Thank goodness. What? Did I say that
Too-
out loud?
So it's so weird, heck, to not hear you through your like mic that you use when you're performing. That thing's awesome. I'm so envious of that.
It is awesome, but it means I can't do anything with my hands. So like if I'm holding it, this hand's useless, and it also means I can't have two drinks in my hands, which sometimes I might want to do. So
I've got an
Just
empty
need
glass.
to order a gas
Am I
mask
allowed
off
to
of
refill
Amazon and
offline?
duct tape that thing to it and just go.
that would actually have one. I can probably do that. I was debating it, and I also got some sick Russian, I think they're OPF goggles, so like the nuclear explosion flash protection goggles. I'd look pretty rad for a set. But you'd probably just hear heavy breathing the whole time.
Earth Modular Society is asking, or Schmooster, I'm imagining, could be somebody else, what's the joke?
Oh, I was going to do my God voice. I've got this Roland VT04 voice transformer,
Nice.
and I could transform my voice into someone with a pitch perfect lower octave voice.
Oh yeah, I've got that built into my mixer. I've done that on Zoom meetings before, like at work, where I'm like, "Hello."
Yeah. Or you go real high and sound like an elf or something. Yeah, it's great. It's also got a vocoder, which is the main reason I got it, but because at the time I really wanted like a microKORG or something, and I also needed some like utility, so I opted for this. And then like a month later, my MicroFreak turned into a vocoder, and I was stoked about it. Maybe 2 months.
I'm just going to share that I'm very happy that my cat filter on Zoom tonight, I've got that under control because that went viral a couple of days ago.
By the way, I want to give another shout out to another great synth community besides New York Modular Society and Earth
Yeah.
Modular Society, and that's the Div Kid Patreon group. Like that's really the group of people that, and that's where I met Benjamin, who invited me to Earth Modular Society. Like that's the group of people that, and Alex, you're on there too, right?
Yeah, it kicks ass.
It's just a bunch of like Ben's been missing for a while, like from the server, like not really participant, just because he's got a lot of.
We
life
haven't
stuff
heard
going
from
on.
him since Christmas. Hope he's
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
So we're all a little worried about him, but
Yeah.
the group of people there, I think he established a really good ethos, and everybody, from watching all of his videos, like everybody's really likes to geek out about a lot of the different module things. And so there's a lot of really good discussion there about individual modules and patching techniques and stuff like that. And so I've learned so much from the crew over there and really enjoy hanging out with all of them.
Is that an open Discord or is it
No,
Patreon?
it's for his Patreon supporters, so it's a pay to play. But I figure it's $5 a month, which is like a magazine subscription.
Each. Yeah, that doesn't bother me. I was just curious.
Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing. Yeah. I'll have to Patreon that once yeah.
Right, X7.
Yeah,
next topic. Let's go.
All right. Next topic. Let me check my list. We already talked about percussion.
I'm still looking for more questions, good questions coming in from Robbie and Cauldron, but if we've got a...
Oh, also, oscillators with really short envelopes are good percussion.
Yeah. 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 I mean, everything is percussion was just sort of like, I feel like I heard like Tom Morello or somebody say that when talking about coming up with melodies or guitar riffs or whatever. And that really stuck with me. And it's something that is in my head constantly when I'm coming up with whatever if I'm coming up with a sequence or whatever, even if it has nothing to do with drums, I'm thinking like, okay, how can I make this funky? Okay, let's break that up or pick a different melody, but thinking about it more like drums instead of thinking about it like necessarily playing a piano or a guitar. Also, like singing is a good way to do that. Like just make mouth noises in funky patterns, and you'll come up with some and try to then translate that into the sequence, and you can make some fun stuff.
Totally. I mean, it blew my mind. I can't remember when it happened, but I remember it as a thing in my head, which is when kicks have a tone. I was like, whoa. We're like, what? It's like, I don't know, kicks have a tone. It's like, what? It's like, oh, no, you can tune a kick. And like, that was like a mind-blowing, like for me, there was like, fuck it, a kick's a kick, right? It's like no, it tones up and it tones down, and it can be tuned into the overall thing. And when then you really start to add decay over the top of that thing, then you really become to realize it. So that is an example of like that notion of like percussion is music, or whatever the right term is. Like that was for me. I can't remember when I was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's one of the big complaints about the Queen of Pentacles, because you cannot tune the kick. You can only change its decay. You cannot tune it from the front panel. You have to take it out of the case and actually tune it from the back if you want to change the tuning of it. It's just you have control over the decay and the volume, and then you can add effects to it. So a lot of people are like, you can't tune the kick. Why, But meanwhile, all you have to do is use something else as the kick in your system, tune that, and then play them together. You know what I mean? Like
or
fiddle with the
run
effects,
that kick through a filter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That you can do that. So if you take a Allen key filter, which is a like bass heavy filter, you can just like run that kick in.
Yeah.
Tune the kick that way. I mean, it's indirect for sure.
Well, that's one of the filter banks are good for that too, and that's one of the things that's one of the tricks I've been using the ER301 for recently, because I got a Sweet 16 hooked up to it, and I actually built a patch that's a full 16 band filter bank in the ER301 that's controlled by this Sweet 16, and so I sometimes run my sounds through that and then sculpt it around as I'm playing, which is fun.
Yeah, that's rad. I've been using my my MS-10, my Korg MS-10 a lot as sort of a percussive instrument lately. Like I usually default to bass lines with it because, I don't know, it's really easy to do that with it, but cranking up sort of the envelope on it and the filter, and run 16 notes at the same note, and you get sort of this really percussive, high energy feel from it that I like. So I've been using that a lot. And yeah, tuning that kick drum's probably not a big deal.
Just on that topic still, like, so I was fucking around with this other thing, which is frequency CV control on the filter, which, you know, if you go apply key tracking, you can have short, even longer percussion, stay in tune, mirroring like your bass line. So you just mult the CV out, and then it's hitting your oscillator pitch CV, and then hitting and then on the filter, the same pitch CV. So you're doing key tracking, which is like a pretty standard feature on a lot of modern synths these days. But like, to replicate it, it's kind of fun thing to play around with, and you can then shorten that decay on both sides and lengthen the attack and the decay, like on two different outputs, including the filter and the original signal, and you can like, oh no, whoa. Sorry, I realize
that's an interesting idea to try.
I'm saying stuff that is kind of obvious in the modular world, but like for me, it's just like these little profound realizations that go, holy shit, you can do that. I didn't even think I could do that. To think that.
Yeah, I've got this new filter
like
that's
one of those a week.
Yeah. Like this one right now is epiphany for me, because now I want to take that idea, like take the key, the control voltage from my keyboard, run it through a attenuverter, and mult the attenuverter so I can adjust just a little bit of the key tracking, and run it into this new GUR filter thing that I built, because it's got control voltage for it's got its own VCA sort of built in, so you've got that aspect of control voltage to it, but also to the cutoff frequency, and the resonance has control voltage input. So like trying key tracking,
that's so cool.
All of those things.
You've got to remind me, if I can be brave enough tomorrow, I might just do like a short session tomorrow of fucking around with exactly what we're talking about, because like I stumbled it on across today, and I'll be like, what? This is like a single voice geeking out for sure, but it's like I got to talk through that patch, so I'll do that tomorrow because it's fun.
Cool. There's another question from Cauldron of Bats. How do you keep everything in tune, like with each other? And I assume that's talking more to y'all than me, because I use mostly MIDI, but I'm guessing how do you keep things across multiple voices in tune with each other?
So it helps that I tend to go for more stable oscillators in general and digital ones. So I have 2-piston Honda MK3s, which are basically have 4 different VCOs total in them, and they're all digital, so they stay in tune like no problem. And I have a Bird Kids Bateleur, and I just got a Brinso, which is gorgeous. I love it. And I also have a Deckard's Voice, and I did have, I mean, I have others over here that I'm probably selling soon, because the Brinso ate up some room. But for the most part, I tune by ear. You know, I just like, I usually will, I do have a quantizer that I use. I have the ADAC intuitive quantizer, which I'll use sometimes to make sure everything's tracking exactly right when I'm interested in that sort of thing. But for the most part, for all the things I have to tune, I'll run a VCO into my Doepfer precision adder and run it out to all those, and just play a note with no gate and do a quick tune of them. When I'm really thinking I need to make sure these are in tune, I'll do that ahead of patching things up. But for the most part, I just play it live, and if it sounds a little off, I go and turn it a little bit, and, you know, like, oh, sorry.
And that's something I'm very familiar with, as most of my stuff is analog oscillators, and this is a room that changes temperature pretty quickly one way or the other, so I'm constantly fiddling with the fine tune on a lot of the things.
I mean, for me, there's 2 sides of this question, or 2 potential meanings of the question. It's like, how do you keep things in tune regardless of whatever scale or whatever. And then how do you keep, like, let's say, a patch quantized in some sort of a scale? So I'm assuming that Cauldron, you're interested in more about maybe the former rather than the latter, but I don't know. So I just like scope my answer. Like I've got a Macbeth that changes with temperature, humidity. It's very slight, but fuck it. I paid a lot of money for it to be imperfect, and I like it a lot for that reason.
You get
And then
these
there's
detunes with those that are just so nice. Like that's, I don't mind it detuning too much unless I want stuff to be exactly lined up.
It's a reflection of the day.
Yeah.
Is it snowy? Is it hot? Is it this? Does it come out right? Whatever. I don't know. And then there's digital oscillators, and then the only reason they really go out of tune is because I've been fucking around with it, like as an LFO or something like that. So like generally, if you can like hit a module and it's like C everywhere, and I just want like C everywhere, like to middle C, just like pop 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 pop. I'll use now something like the Black Sequencer, which is ultra reliable on its out on an octave, and I just like punch it with a Modax to give me the visual feedback. Normally I have to go like up a couple of octaves somehow, just like for it to register, but it'll give me a C, like a C3 across everything, and then like if that's how I feel, that's how I do it. And like I've done it enough times to know now I can do it in less than like 3 or 4 minutes across the main oscillators that I want to fuck around with. It used to take me like 2 days before that until I realized what is an octave, what is like. So now I got it down to like a few minutes.
So the one
Previously,
thing about,
I didn't even care about it.
Yeah, the one thing about the Black Sequencer, like it's got a built-in quantizer too, which is great.
Yeah.
So you can set everything in the same key.
Oh, cool.
But the one thing that annoys me about that though is the magic. Like it has a magic button, so you can magically make brand new CVs. So you can set the quantizer to a note, hit the magic button, and it'll all be in key. But there doesn't seem to be any banding of octaves. So every once in a while, you'll have a sequence that it creates where there's like a really high note in the midst of a bunch of low notes, and it just doesn't quite work. And that's where
you can do that by scale, CK. You can. Maybe you already know this, and I'm misunderstanding. But you're able to, on the magic settings, you're able to set the octave range within the magic context. Do you mean something different to that?
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I need to read the manual.
Yeah. No, but you can do that. So in Magic Setup, there are a whole bunch of parameters in Magic Setup that include like if you're going to hit
I didn't
gate
even know
on
Magic had a setup.
like you could like look, let's say gate. You can go, I want from 0 to 30% gates, or I want from etc. You can do the same with CV values and a whole
it sets
bunch of
C0 to C10
so you're able
right
to
now.
shape your randomness as you like.
See, I'm just a moron. I didn't even think that there would be a setup for the magic. Look at that.
Yeah, but
That's amazing.
But that's why it's a great fucking product.
Oh my god. The only thing that I want this to do, and I'm just saying this out loud in case you read the manual and this is doable and I don't realize it, is I used to have an ER 101 and 102. I just sold it for way too much money because somebody bought it. Sorry, whoever bought it for too much money, but they're in high demand right now, and I figured I want more modules. So I sold it, but the one thing that it did that the Erica Synth does not do easily is you could set separate, you could set the length of your gate and the length of the note. So in the sequence, you could have a six beat note.
You can tie.
That had the gate open for 5, and now it's and that was simple in the ER 101 102, but here I have to tie notes together and use the percentage of the gate to equivocate the same thing, but it's not as precise.
You're beyond me on that one, because like I use, for me, it's all about like if I'm doing a one-to-one relationship, I tend to tie the length of the gate with the length of the pitch, and so that decoupling thing I just haven't tried. So
Yeah.
I believe you.
I gotta figure out how to do that. I can't believe this Magic has freaking setup stuff. Look at all these parameters I can change now.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Oh my god. The gate Magic, just limiting that is gonna be cool. And the ratchet too. The ratchet will be great. I could just limit it to 3 ratchets tops.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You can manage your randomness and the magic. Like it's control magic.
Yeah.
This is magic right here.
I agree.
Watching go. Anyway. Oh, actual tuning. I wanted to talk about actual tuning, like tuning things like my oscillators to be in tune. I just got a new
I'll be. Carry on.
Okay. All right. I'm going to point the camera down a little bit. Let's see my laptop. Down there is a chord guitar pedal that I've been using lately because I'd been using there's like a tuner sort of baked into my guitar amp that's all the way on the other side. I didn't like dragging my guitar around and doing all that, so I got a pedal finally for it, which is way better. But I've been using it just constantly to tune random synthesizer things or whatever, and it's been so much more accurate. Like the Mega Drone, I'm tuning 10 oscillators, and it's so much faster. Instead of trying to do it by ear, just jamming this into the output, tuning them one by one, and not annoying the crap out of people while I do it. Like that's been a significant quality of life improvement for me. Because I used to just like hold down a button on the Micro Freak because it's digital and like tune to that, but it wasn't always the best.
Yeah, Benjamin on our chat actually mentioned using Ableton to tune everything, like the built-in tuner to Ableton, which I had never thought of, but I actually have all of my audio from everything here going into my computer, so I could easily just launch Ableton and use it as a very expensive tuner.
That's what I did actually for last week's thing. I made some oscilloscope visuals, and I realized after I'd made them and popped them into Ableton, I was like, what am I doing? These don't sound right. What if I just tuned them using the Ableton tuner? And then I was like, I should just tune everything with the Ableton tuner. This is way better. You get the little view. Anyway, I was pretty proud of the guitar pedal though, so.
Yeah, I got like a cheapo tuner. Where is it? I keep on misplacing it. This click tuner.
Yeah, I had one just like that, and I think it's gone now. I think I might have tossed it, but it was so old that the batteries like had exploded in it.
Gross.
And it wouldn't even like.
I was like
yeah.
pulling out of the hex mix individual things with a 1/4 inch or to tune everything, but it was just too cumbersome. I gave up. I just tuned by ear.
Yeah, tuning by ear is my go-to. Like the only time I tune specifically with the tuner is when I'm trying to like reduce the amount of phase cancellation if I'm using more than one oscillator.
Actually, to revise my statement, the way that I tend to tune is, since the Piston Honda MK3 is actually a very stable digital oscillator, I'll tune it down to the lowest C it goes to, which is C0, and then I'll put a pure sine wave coming out of it, put that on one track loud, and then tune everything else to that, and that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, that's essentially what I've been doing with the Micro Freak. Hit the hold button, I've been tuning to A for some reason, but C works fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had like a whole, like my latest gear was just buying tuners. I got one Pokemon one for the ukulele and the guitar pedal. And I feel so much better about the speed at which I can make things slightly less out of tune.
Yeah, somebody's talking about performance mode in the chat on the black sequencer, and that's one thing, even though I perform on it all the time, I haven't even bothered to learn yet. So
that's what I want to see more of. I want to know more about that. Maybe not on this particular episode, but I want to know more about like these performance tools that sequencers are adding, because I don't think they're very. The ones I've seen don't excite me all that much. Like there's not a lot of like stutters and things like that in sequencers that I've seen. And again, I don't know a lot about. I don't know all of the Eurorack modules. I know the modules very well that you can build, but and like some of the other more standard sequencers, but it's just boring. Like once you play with an OP's, like any teenage engineering pocket operator, you're like, why can't any of that do stutters and like crazy sweeps and stuff like that too? But
right.
Why can't any of that do?
I'm hearing you echo now.
Crazy sweeps. Yeah, I'm hearing my echo too. I wonder.
That must be Alex.
Yeah. Did he put like his earbuds right next to the microphone? Yeah.
That's weird. If we get quiet, it takes over.
I'm hearing you echo now. Crazy sweeps. Yeah,
that's me. My apologies. My apologies. We have 2 minutes left on the current Zoom session, so quick warning. That's the
Why don't we call it? I think that was a good. Unless y'all have some burning.
I got burning shit. I'm not ready yet to go.
All right, let's call it. I'm gonna. Do you want to play us out, CK?
I mean, it's just the same stupid sequence that is playing. If I do,
wait,
I can't.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it like professionals. I'm gonna change my camera here in a second.
Who cares about tuning?
This is how you tune.
All just the Brinzo, by the way.
All right, Alex, kill it whenever you want. We're good.
stop.